Hi, everyone. It's Luke Thomas, Wednesday, the 20th of March, 2019. Boy, do I have some news for you. I woke up this morning. As you can see, I still have my trusted coffee with Eeyore here, and I'll have a sip right now. And I saw that TJ Dillashaw, by his own admission, had come out and said he had failed a drug test and was being suspended by both USADA and the New York State Athletic Commission. This is dating back to his fight against Henry Cejudo back in January for the flyweight title. That was the opener on ESPN and blah, 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 blah. Remember all that back in Brooklyn? I was there for that. I did a post-fight show from there. The audio wasn't synced up. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so that's a real thing. He put out a statement this morning. It reads as follows. To all my fans, I wanted to be the first one to let you know that USADA and the New York State Athletic Commission have informed me of an adverse finding in a test taken for my last fight. While words can't even begin to express how disappointed I am at this time, please know that I'm working with my team to understand what has occurred and how to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. Out of fairness and respect to the rest of my division, I've informed the UFC that I'll be voluntarily relinquishing my title while I deal with this matter. I want to thank all of you in advance for the support. Okay, so there's a ton of questions that come out of this one. Some takeaways too. So what are they? Let's jump into them. All right, first, there's a lot of unknowns here. Number one, what did he test positive for? When was the test taken? What was the amount that showed up? In addition, he says he was informed by both USADA and the commission in New York. Was it just a USADA test and then USADA informed the New York commission? Or was it a USADA test and a New York State Athletic Commission test that maybe he took on the same day or in the same same time period, and both of them found it? That's not clear either. So there's a ton of unknowns here related to who was doing the testing, what the test showed, how much it showed, and what that all means. So we're dealing with a lot of unknowns. Obviously, it's enough to force him to give up his title, which is huge. But at the same time, you got to be a little bit careful with this one in terms of what it all means, because we really, really don't know. And those details sound inconsequential, but in the long run can actually be pretty important. If it was a commission test that he got caught up in, that changes the equation a little bit. If it was just a USADA test, we'll have to see. New York has already suspended him, I believe, 1 year. So he already can't compete for a year, which is probably one of the reasons why he had to give up his title. As for USADA, I don't really know what's going to happen here. Remember, USADA has a heavier-handed approach to drug protocol and drug testing, but at the same time, they are a little bit more science-based than a New York or any kind of really athletic commission. So let's say this is a contaminated supplement issue. There's a famous picture out there floating of TJ Dillashaw, I think in the run-up to this fight, where he had just like a table of pills. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's say it was something that he took inadvertently, which, by the way, Blackstone Labs just got hemmed up in. But okay, neither here nor there. Let's just say that's that. He could get off in 6 months, right? He can get off pretty early. It would really depend. On the other hand, even if you take things inadvertently, you can be in a Jessica Penny situation where they still put you out for 18 months. And USADA even agreed it wasn't necessarily her fault. So there's a lot of unknowns here, whether it's a supplement, whether it's something a doctor gave you, some kind of in between. Really a ton of unknowns here. He could be out for up to 2 years, but I would just like to point out there are a number of documented known circumstances that could put him back in the cage a lot earlier. It just looks like it won't be any earlier than a year, because even if USADA only gives him 6, New Jersey, Nevada, California, any other commission is going to recognize that 1-year suspension from New York. So that's no doubt about it. If nothing else, that's in play. I will say that him giving up the belt is the right call. That was a log-jam division. That's good news for Marlon Moraes and any of the other top contenders there. Let me look this up here just for a second. Any of the top contenders down at bantamweight. So you've got Rafael Sunsao at 2. Aljamain Sterling's kind of right there. So he might end up getting a title shot, because it's not, Marlon I thought was the next guy for TJ, but now that TJ's stepping out of the way, they're going to have to find a ton of fresh blood up in there. So it looks like they're going to have to go down the list. These two guys are going to benefit pretty heavily from this as a consequence. So that's kind of interesting. So there's that. This is good for flyweight as well because now there's some clarity. They're not going to have to run this back at a different weight class. So, by the way, Jussier Formiga, I think, competes, if I'm not mistaken in my notes here, he competes at UFC Fight Night 148. That's this coming weekend. So in Nashville, he's the number one contender at flyweight, and he's competing this weekend. He's going to benefit from this tremendously because now, even though the division of flyweight is totally up in the air, that's got to be better than the flyweight champ going up there and competing at bantamweight, right? You would think that he would benefit from that. So that's a positive, I suppose. By the way, speaking of Henry Cejudo, let's talk about some of the people that benefit from this call, at least in its initial stages. And I do want to stress its initial stages. I would say, one, it is Henry Cejudo, right? TJ Dillashaw went down to flyweight, lost quickly. I know there was a bit of controversy about the ref. I think the reffing call was not great, but it wasn't bad. I think it was just okay. Anyway, whatever your opinion about that, they're never going to run that one back, at least not anytime soon at all. He's kind of your de facto winner at this point. It was like, whatever you thought of the stoppage, TJ didn't look great getting down there, didn't perform great getting down there, and now it looks like there may be reasons to believe, we don't know for sure, but there might be reasons to believe he got down there in mechanisms that were potentially not above board. That's your winner. Henry Cejudo is just your winner there. I don't know what else to tell you. They're never going to put it back. And every circumstance that we had and every opportunity for that to be proven for TJ that was a thing he could do, he didn't. And so Henry Cejudo walks away your top winner there. Another thing to consider is I would say Cody Garbrandt kind of comes out of this at least looking a little bit better. You know, look, fighters accuse each other in this game, whether they're former teammates or not, of you're doing steroids and you're doing steroids and everyone's on steroids. Number one, we don't know what he failed for. I can't stress that enough and what the circumstances around that might be. So I don't want to give credence to baseless accusations, but maybe it's hard to know how baseless they were, right? In any case, you put that out there in the media, then this happened. He might take some solace in that. It might look better for him in the long run if he's able to show that his losses were partly a function of what TJ was doing or not. It's a little bit unclear. I'm just pointing out you had a rival who you accused of doing stuff. Then the rival gets allegedly, seemingly caught by authorities. That can't... The Pedro Munoz fight where he's like, oh, kill or be killed, that's still not great. But, there's reasons to believe that Garbrandt's losses might be viewed a little bit differently going forward. I can't guarantee that, but at least is something to consider. And for TJ, man, look, he has a right to defend himself. These fighters are entitled to due process. I'm glad he was the one who announced it versus USADA because he got to announce it on his terms. And again, I cannot stress this enough. We have no idea the myriad ways this could go. But it's a bad look. It's a bad look. It's a look that's a lot of people are going to say, I have to go back and rethink those wins. I have to go back and rethink what I thought about him pound for pound or whatever the case may be. I will say this, it's an interesting scenario. It's like the guy is fighting in a way. I even went over the Monday Morning Analyst when I was talking about Jorge Masvidal and Tyron Woodley doing the double shift. The best double shifter is TJ Dillashaw. There's a method to what he does that, again, drugs can aid everything. But I'm going to make this claim again. If you watch the tape, that's an implementation of knowledge and insight into the game, and he's doing it in the first round. What kind of drug would aid that? There might be other aspects to the performance that a drug might aid, but that is simply an implementation of a knowledge gap between he and Dwayne Ludwig and the rest of the competitors, not merely in that bantamweight division, but frankly MMA. They know things about shifting and angle switching and stance switching and setting up attacks through that kind of extended angular motion. I could sit in a room all day and take performance-enhancing drugs, and that would never even occur to me. So again, it's not, I'm not, and I made this point clear in the Mike Dolce debate, or discussion rather. It's not that I'm not arguing that drugs don't provide performance enhancement. It's just a question of what kind. It looks to me like if you're drastically trying to make a weight cut, here is my guess. I am speculating. I want to be very clear about that. My guess is if he took something, it is more likely, in my very limited assessment, more likely related to that drastic weight cut. I can't say that for sure, but that's what I'm wondering. But who knows? It could be something much more significant than that. I really am totally guessing in the dark here. It was also kind of interesting, though, that you had somebody take something and have the worst performance of their career. Again, the referee stoppage, not great, but certainly not a strong performance by TJ Dillashaw either. The weight cut was a strong performance, I suppose, getting down to that weight class. But then the fight, not itself, and then afterwards, all of these things. It was, the flyweight, the attempt at flyweight was a misbegotten one for TJ Dillashaw, it appears. So yeah, that is what we are working with here. It is a crazy situation. You guys all know my views on performance-enhancing drugs. It's a bit of a Rorschach test, right? Some of you are going to look at this and say, aha, USADA's catching everyone. And I'm like, yeah, they keep catching people, and this keeps happening. So what do you think that tells you? But that's a different debate for a different time. TJ Dillashaw is no longer your bantamweight champion. I don't know who's going to fight for that. By the way, I was just thinking about this. If Marlon Moraes wins, that means the manager, Ali Abdelaziz, will have, I think, 4 UFC champions. He will have Henry. He will have, if Marlon fights and wins. And he's, to me, the best bantamweight, especially now that TJ is not even going to be competing. So then you have that. You would have the best featherweight, no. We'll see what happens with Max. But then you have the best lightweight, so you have those 3. If Gastelum wins, you could have 4. And then at middleweight, no. And then at, there's Whitaker still out there. And then at light heavyweight, you have Jones, no. And then heavyweight, you still have DC. But there are ways in which, you could get that to work. So if you get both, if you pick up both, you have Kamaru Usman as well. So you could have Usman, you could have Gastelum, you could have Moraes, you could have Dillashaw, and you could have Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's a pretty big. I can't think of a single manager who's ever had that many champions if things shake out that way. So it's another sort of layer to this whole story as well. Kind of crazy. All right. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you really liked it, subscribe. I really appreciate that. The thumbs up, subscribe, do that whole bit. Here I am on Wednesday morning bringing you guys some breaking news. Appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, stay frosty. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel. There's other videos you can watch right here. If you've never heard my SiriusXM radio show, there's a link in the description box below. You can try it for free for 30 days. The Luke Thomas Show airs weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fight Nation, Channel 93. Catch y'all next time.